Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here at this very early hour. We really appreciate your presence. It is my pleasure and honor today to introduce to you Melody Morrison, who will be defending her dissertation. Melody completed her undergraduate degree in piano performance at Corban University in Salem, Oregon. She then went on to complete her master's in piano performance and pedagogy at the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho. And prior to coming to us here at Florida State University in Tallahassee, she taught for 3 years at her alma mater, Corban State, and she was teaching piano, applied piano, group piano, music theory, and oral skills for 3 years there. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Melody Morrison.
Thank you so much for coming today. I'm really excited to share with you my project that I've been working on for several months now. The title of my dissertation is Collegiate Class Piano in the Western Hemisphere, an investigation of collegiate class piano courses in North and South America. So I'm going to start out a little unconventionally today, but it's early, so this will wake us up. Okay. So here you'll see this diagram. So this means both hands together, right hand, left hand, right, and so forth. So I'm going to clap this out, and I'm going to say these out loud, and then I'll do it another time, and then hopefully you guys will feel comfortable to join in. So both right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right. I'll do it one more time, a little slower. Both right, left, right. Feel free to join in. Feel free to say the stuff, verbalize it. 1, 2, ready, go.
Both right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, right.
Oh, it seems like most of you got it. Hey, so you can imagine that this would be a little easier than this, which is the actual rhythm, right? If you weren't familiar with rhythm, or if you were not comfortable with piano and you have to play this on piano. So this will tie into something later, I promise. So I want to get into the need for my study. Collegiate class piano has grown substantially since its beginnings in the mid-20th century. It's an important part of the undergraduate curriculum. There are discrepancies in the requirements that are in the United States, as shown in multiple studies, including Young 2016. And most importantly, I think for this study, there's limited literature on class piano in other parts of the world. We just know about it in the US most of the time. So an overview of collegiate class piano in the US has not been conducted in over 7 years. And as I said previously, little is known about class piano in other countries. So the purpose of my study I'll be talking about today is to investigate the status of group piano instruction as well as instructor perceptions in universities throughout North and South America through a mixed method approach. So these are my research questions, which are a lot. So I'm going to shorten it to 4 themes. So we have instructor and university, demographics, the program structure, so maybe weekly contact hours and specific requirements of the program, textbooks and supplemental materials, and instructors' perceptions. So that's what I'll be talking about today. Here's our agenda. We have a review of literature, methodology, results, discussion, and finally conclusions and recommendations based off of what we found in the study. So I'll start with a quick overview of class piano. So class piano is used interchangeably nowadays with group piano. You might have heard me say both terms already. So this guy, Johann Collegiate, is responsible for starting this method of teaching piano. This was in Dublin, Ireland in 1815. He had about 30 students in his first class. And this was during a lot of political unrest at the time. So people were kind of breaking from tradition and education. There was the idea that lots of children needed to be educated, no matter their status, their parents' status. So this was just a really good pocket of time for him to start this method of teaching piano. Not too long later, 3 years later, teachers from the US, very interested in this method of teaching piano, and they came to observe his classes. By 1856, we see the first record of class piano in the Western Hemisphere in Canada. And then 4 years later, we see it in the South in the United States in girls' schools in Tennessee and Mississippi. By By 1923, class piano was really flourishing, so the U.S. Office of Education endorsed it in the public schools. So there's an early picture. You can see they don't have real pianos even, they just had paper cutouts, but it was really popular nevertheless. In 1926 to 31, this was known as the piano class explosion. Like, this was just so popular. There was literature, seminars, books. Classes were huge. Like, this has about 50 kids in it. That was not uncommon during that time. It was just very popular. By 1933, MTNA, Music Teachers National Association, recognized the importance of teaching adults as well as children. So they added this to their committee. 1956 was a big year for collegiate class piano and class piano in general, because now the first electronic piano lab was installed, so you could use headphones instead of playing out loud, which is nice. And then in the 1970s, collegiate class piano began to flourish and grow. We had leaders such as James Legg and Martha Hilly and E.L. Lancaster, who's not pictured, but they wrote a lot of literature, did a lot of teacher training for collegiate class piano specifically. In 1976, the first occurrence of group piano happened in Brazil. So Brazilian teachers would come to the U.S. to observe, just like the U.S. had observed Ireland all those years before. By 1999, MTNA now added class piano as a track in the national conference. So it was really, really gaining prominence in the piano pedagogy field. By 2000, there was an entire conference based on group piano and piano pedagogy. And this is still going on today. Jumping forward to post-2020, which is the stage we're in now, there's been an increase in online teaching because we were kind of forced to do it during COVID, and so now we know the capabilities that we have through technology, so group piano classes can be held online. Now we kind of stepped through that, let's go to the methodology of my study. So for my study, I had participants from several different countries in North and South America. Namely, I had the United States, Canada, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, Brazil, Peru, and Uruguay. And I sent out a questionnaire, and I had 3 versions of it. I had English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and I did this questionnaire through Qualtrics software, so it was easily accessible for anybody. The way that I would reach out to my participants is I would send an invitation email either to the dean or to professors directly. I sent this out to 40 institutions. 20 of them had participants who took my survey. The survey took approximately 5 to 10 minutes to complete. Then moving on to the exciting stuff, the results of the study. So here again are the themes. So let's look at the first theme, which is instructor and university demographics. So this is the first question I asked, was their level of education. Most of them had a doctoral degree followed by a master's and bachelor's. They represented a wide variety of educational backgrounds, including piano pedagogy, piano performance, collaborative piano, music education, music theory and composition, ethnomusicology, conducting, and jazz. So we had, like I said, a wide variety of background. I also wanted to know how long they had been teaching. You can see it was pretty equally dispersed except for this category here. We did have 3 teachers who were very experienced, one from the US, Mexico, and Colombia, who were teaching for over 20 years. Moving on to the program structure. Okay, so sequential semesters offered. There was a large range of 1 to 6 with a mean of 3.55, a standard deviation of 1.21. For weekly contact hours, we had a range of 1 to 4 with a mean of 1.93, standard deviation of 0.73. I want to point out that this 4 came from Brazil, so it's pretty amazing that there is at least one class there who is teaching 4 hours a week, when you can see that the mean is just below 2. And then I wanted to know if universities require different things for different majors, and 21% said yes, 79% said no. So now moving on to the textbooks and supplemental materials. I asked teachers, I gave them a list of books, which are all pictured here. I won't list all of them, but I gave them options, and at least one instructor would use like each of these books except for those 2. So Most of them use at least one. And I also asked they use flashcards. 4 of them said they use flashcards to assist their teaching. 8 of them use music games. 11 of them use worksheets. And 11 of them use popular songbooks. 9 of them use ensemble books. So it's where you have a lot of pianos playing the same piece, but they have different levels of difficulty. And then sight reading books. I had 13 use sight reading books. I also wanted to know what digital tools teachers were using. So I gave them YouTube, smart device apps, educational websites, a document camera, a note visualizer, which are older tools, but some people are using them because they're useful. But most people said that they use YouTube, at least out of this, is the most popular response. And then I just am really interested in using backing tracks. I use this in my own classes, and it's really popular in piano pedagogy right now. So I gave them options of mini tracks, YouTube, smartphone apps, and built-in keyboard tracks. So I asked them if they use drum beat only or instrumental tracks. So let me show you the difference between those. So here's a drum beat only backing track. So you can imagine someone playing a scale or something that kind of spices it up. Yeah. And then instrumental backing track is where you have a drum beat, but you also have a harmony on top of it, so instruments on top of it in a certain key. So this one's in C major. So someone can play C major scale, C major arpeggio, whatever. So that's what I meant. So now that we have all those definitions, we have one of these big charts again, but 12 of them use backing tracks graded for the textbook, and then we can see that we have some, like for each of the categories. And then, moving on to instructors' perceptions. So this was an interesting part of the study. So I asked instructors what they thought the benefit was on their students' future careers, 1 being not at all, 5 being extremely. We can see we have mostly 5s and 4s. And then I kind of twisted it a little bit, and I asked them the same question, but kind of from their students' perspective. Now, I didn't ask the students directly, but I asked the faculty to kind of guess what they thought their students would think. We see less 5s, but we do see a lot of 4s, so that's positive. And then I asked them to kind of rate their students' overall attitude towards the class piano requirement in the school. And we again see a lot of 4s. I did compare North and South America for this question. I found a significant difference with this particular one, which basically means that South American students have a little bit more positive attitude towards class piano than North American students. But we'll look into maybe why that is later. And then I have another one of these really big charts, which is a lot. So I'm going to make it a little easier. These are different skills that are taught in class piano. So I asked instructors to rank 1 to 5, 1 being not important, 5 being extremely important. And so the top 5, I took the top 5 from here, are chord progressions and harmonization, accompanying, ensemble playing, and sight reading. So these were the top 5 from this study. And then my last question I asked in the perception section was, do they think that it would be useful to have a more standardized catalog of class piano requirements in their country? 43% say yes, 57% said no. So now that we have the results, let's talk about it. So I go to the discussion section. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was in the program structure section. In Canada, there's a disparity among the number of sequential semesters required or offered. It was very low, like usually 1. I think we have 3 1s and 1 2. So the class piano offerings remain limited. So I was wondering why this was. I talked to some Canadian instructors and just doing my own research. Piano proficiency of level 6 is often required in Canada or strongly recommended before the start of university music program, and level 6 is through the Royal Conservatory of Music, which is a program that has graded evaluations for students. And so this is so popular in the country that music students, no matter what instrument they play, are kind of expected to have some piano background already. So Canada just has this one system, and then I compared it to the US and our pre-college evaluation systems, and we have like these and many more, right? We have at least one for each state. I know myself, I've seen Oregon, Idaho, Florida's systems, and they're all very different from each other. So there's just something to be said about having one system versus a lot of other systems. Then I wanted to go to the skill requirements and competency in collegiate class piano programs. So faculty perceptions, according to a 2010 study, seem to be shaped by curricular requirements. So basically you're trying to check off things off of a list. But institutions should be teaching the skills students need in their current role and in their future careers, as Young 2016 said. So what skills do we teach though? Like what is important to teach? Well, these are just a few of the studies that have really dived into this topic. I took the top 4 skills from those studies, which are sight reading, transposition, score reading, and playing accompaniments. Now from our study, as we saw in the results, we have these 5 skills. These were ranked the top. I found a significant difference between how North America and South America ranked these in these 3. So let's look at those in detail. For chord progressions, this was probably the biggest difference. The North America had a mean of 4, a standard deviation of 1.13, while South America had a mean of 4.7, a standard deviation of 0.4, which means that they're almost unanimously saying that chord progressions are really important. So I was wondering, why is this? So I dove into some South American literature and talked to some of them. So let's look at how North America teaches chord progressions. This is very typical, right? We play 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, and we usually use these rhythmic values, right? And it's pretty much an isolated exercise. Then after this, we would maybe see these chord progressions pop up in a piece, like here's 1, 4, 5, 6, 5. And you can see it, the book even says, this is Alfred's group piano for adults, find the 1 and 5, 6, 5 chords. However, in my experience teaching, at least, I don't see a super successful transfer of what they're actually playing. They're just stressed out about playing the piece. And then usually we'll move on to harmonization like this. So they learn to harmonize a melody using usually these 3 left-hand patterns. And then they would also see something like this. So they learn to read a lead sheet. And they all come after the other. And then a teacher may decide later on to start teaching other rhythmic patterns, right? For accompanying, for lead sheet playing, pop songs, stuff like that. Here's another one near the end of the book in contemporary class piano. You can see it, there's some ideas, but this definitely came way later than the basic instruction of chord progressions. So that's how North America does it. Well, let's look at how South America does chord progressions. So I looked at these 2 books here, which were graciously written down in the questionnaire when I asked teachers what literature they use. So I was able to get a hold of these. So this is an excerpt from the Red Book Manual on Harmony Applied to the Piano. And you can see that this is teaching 1 and 1 to 5 progression, but it's kind of combining it with some of the popular dance rhythms of South America, because rhythms and all of these dance rhythms are very important there. So they're kind of combining 2 different things. I think this would be a little more fun, honestly, than the half note thing. And then we also have this from another book. So see how they're also teaching some different chords and popular progressions. However, now we have a baseline. The author said that he thinks having a baseline, being able to create a baseline while playing is really important. So again, we're combining kind of chord progressions and other skills into one thing, which I think is really cool. He even gives suggestions of other songs to go find to try out these patterns. And they also have this book from Brazil, 211 rhythms. So actually this is where I took the rhythm from the beginning today. And they have all of this. So it's 211, there's a lot And so, you know, they're always teaching these different rhythms, so students have a very rich repertoire of patterns to pull when they're playing anything. They also do a lot of listening and almost by rote playing. This is from an adult book called Learn How to Play Piano Now. This is from Columbia, and this is the second piece in the book. If you compare that to a second piece in a North American book, it's very different. Look at all the syncopation, look at all that's going on. Usually we just have like quarter notes and half notes maybe, the equivalent in North America. But you can see how much listening is encouraged, because look at the big CD on the front, and I read the inside of the book, and it emphasizes how important listening is. So there's a lot more rote teaching and using the ear more. So as we did earlier when I taught that rhythm by rote, that's very similar to what they would do. They would just use the piano, right, in South America. So because chord progressions are highly functional in South America, because students in South America seem to be learning more off the page and by ear, and because the rhythmic variety provides lively and realistic application, I think this is why chord progressions and accompanying both received higher rankings in South America than in North America. That still leads us though with the topic of ensemble playing. Why is this more important in South America seemingly than North America? And it honestly just might be because we have all of these music festivals which require different, different varieties of instruments and ensembles playing. And I know in my discussions with South American professors and just people from South America, they love playing music with each other. And so naturally, I think they would want to integrate this into a group piano class as well. Now, the textbooks and materials. This book probably looks familiar to many of you. It's almost 30 years old now. I think it'll be 30 years old next year. This was the most popular choice. And then this one's kind of on the rise in the US, Innovative Piano. It's a customizable online textbook. And then in South America, they gave me some of these. These are some of the ones that I was able to get the whole book. And it was great to kind of get an insight into how they teach. And then these are completely rote pieces, like rote teaching books. And this one has been used since the 80s, so they've been doing this for a while. This one is newer, but it's already being implemented into class piano programs as written in the questionnaire by instructors. I also wanted to point out this website, blackberta.net. So this is, you could say it's comparable to Ultimate Guitar here in the US, but they say that they use this in their class piano in South America. So there's chord charts, there's videos, so that's just one of the tools they use. I also thought another interesting tool is Plataforma Integrada. So this is kind of like teachers pay teachers here, except it's all free, so teachers don't pay teachers. So in Brazil, they have this program for anybody in Brazil, and honestly in the whole world, because I was able to pull it up. Any topic you want, you can pull it up, and you have all these resources available to you. So I thought this was super cool how they have this kind of attitude of sharing with each other. And then coming back to this one, remember that the South American students had a more positive attitude towards the class piano requirement. Well, I think there could be a few reasons. According to literature, we know that students in North America become overly stressed with test requirements. Testing is just a huge part of our education here. Students experience test performance anxiety, according to 2 2010 studies and more. These are just 2. Students also experience frustration and sometimes embarrassment because they can be really good at their primary instruments such as violin or trumpet, and they come and try to play the piano and try to replicate the same music on this foreign instrument, and they can't. So it can be frustrating for them. And then I also took open-ended thoughts on class piano, which contributes to this. So someone said it's important for every musician to have a comprehensive understanding, keyboard performance, A Brazilian respondent said they want to emphasize a limited availability of materials in the Portuguese language. They said that it's expensive and, most of them are in English. There's not translated books yet. Another Brazilian participant said it's essential to know the goals of students, and they consider it a craft requiring a lot of dedication and attention to try to make the most of it in a short amount of time. So because of those reasons, that they don't have a lot of resources and the teachers are working hard, I think that could also contribute why students are just seem to have a little better disposition towards the class piano requirement. Moving on to the last question, the perceptions on the standardized catalog. We know that 43% said yes, 57% said no. Some of those reasons were Canada said piano courses should continuously evolve, so they were not a fan of standardized catalog. They said standardized tests have a negative connotation, and people who did think it would be good said it would be helpful for transfer students, and they gave an example of a girl who had to retake class piano basically because her college didn't match with another one. Another American or US respondent said it would be useful to have a standardized number of semesters or at least a list of skills. Then one more said it would provide a solid framework for all students despite the college or university that they attend. So now that we know all of that, just to wrap it up, let's talk about conclusions and recommendations. So we know from this study that the results show the variety of class piano structure, curriculum, and perceptions across the Western Hemisphere. So I have three main recommendations just based on what I found in this study. One is on rote teaching, the other is increased standardization of requirements, the third is a global perspective on class piano. Now we know that, like I said earlier, students can arrive to class piano courses with feelings of frustration and embarrassment. However, rote teaching can give students the confidence that they can play the piano, because from the very first lesson you can have them playing stuff by rote without even having to look at any music or do anything else. It can actually alleviate physical tension seen among novice pianists, because if they're not stressed out looking at the music and they're having fun, that can tend to just naturally give them a little bit more looseness in their arms. It can also help with coordination because they're not trying to read both clefs at the same time and they're just doing it by looking at the piano. So, and it's fun. For everybody, right? So, rote teaching can boost confidence, release tension, assist with coordination, and it can promote an overall healthier relationship with the piano. We also have the increased standardization of requirements. So we saw compelling arguments, right, on both sides of this topic. We heard that enhancing the transfer process could be done by implementing a more robust standard, but we also know that we need to keep flexibility in the class piano curriculum. It's essential. So I thought we would do a compromise between the two views. So my suggestion is to keep some of the very core fundamentals that we see in programs already and just give a little bit more specific details for them. And I gave specific leveling. This would be in the US. Other countries could maybe do a similar thing if they want to. And this just gives a few more directions rather than having everything all over the place. And these are pretty core things, and then once students learn these, then the teachers can teach them anything else that they want to. And then lastly, I strongly believe that we should have a more global perspective on class piano. Teachers should continue to look beyond their country's ways, and we should be observing what other countries are studying and accomplishing. And countries should be helping each other, right? We should be sharing what we do. So I hope that with the opportunities for connection through technology, instructors can initiate a spirit of international collaboration and create spaces for sharing ideas and resources. Thank you.